Hey everyone, I wanted to do a quick update about my Magic Formula portfolio, seeing as though it's actually the 1-year anniversary of starting this portfolio. Just want to give a quick update on the performance that we've seen over the past year, and especially over the past few months since I've stopped kind of changing the holdings that I had in here. I've left the portfolio pretty much as is since about September of last year. And then I want to talk about potential next steps for moving forward. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. This is my portfolio for the Magic Formula. It's within an IRA, and the reason I did that was because I was doing quite a bit of churning early on, and I thought if I put it into a tax-advantaged account, I wouldn't trigger capital gains taxes, which is one of the big limitations that Joel Greenblatt in his book, The Little Book That Beats the Market, that introduced this whole concept, this whole strategy of using return on invested capital and earnings yield as a way to price stocks and then rank those stocks according to those two metrics. In the book, he focuses quite a bit on capital gains taxes as being a big reason why you would want to hold each stock for at least a year before you consider selling it, and that would be based on whether it's still on the list, which that list can actually be found for free at magicformulainvesting.com, this website right here. You can create an account for free, and then you can filter the top 30 or 50 stocks based on market cap using, again, those two metrics, return on invested capital and earnings yield, and it will take the highest ranking total for both of those categories. And whichever stocks have the highest ranking total, when you add up the rank for ROIC and the rank for earnings yield, that gets you this list here. So the top 30 stocks, although the stocks, once they're on this list, are not in any particular order, that would be pretty nice if they did that too. But the idea is when you use something like the Magic Formula, you get the collection of the cheapest, best stocks on the market relative to all the others. That's the idea. Whether or not that actually works in practice, well, that's up for some debate because you never really know what the future will hold. And that's a big purpose of this series. It's to track the progress in this portfolio, or really to this point, the lack of progress. In fact, we've seen pretty negative performance over the last few months, especially. If we go ahead and go to a quarterly view, see we're down about 10%. That's basically the start of this year. And if we go back to the all-time view, I'm down something like $500 on about $3,600 invested. So not all that great of a start, but this is a long-term strategy, and you wouldn't expect to beat the market in every single year. It's certainly not beating the market at the moment, but again, time will tell whether the strategy really pays off. Stocks have been quite volatile over the past few months especially, so we'll see if anything corrects over the next year or two, but this is a long-term strategy for me. I'm going to be holding these stocks for a while. My current plan with the holdings that I already do have would be to wait until about next September, which would be 1 year from the date of when I decided to stop doing my sort of portfolio churn strategy. If you want to go ahead and take a look at what that was, go ahead and take a look at the first few episodes of this series where you could see that I was kind of rotating through holdings a lot based on when they actually were added or dropped off of the Magic Formula list. I actually include this spreadsheet in the description below if you want to take a look at that. And I documented each month when I was making those trades down here, and a couple months were broken up into sort of 2 trading sessions when I either made a mistake or accidentally missed something, whatever. But I documented it all down here. So if you want to back test what I did, here is, I think, pretty much anything you would need to actually do that. And once we get to September, this is when I stopped. I stopped changing the portfolio. I just am letting it ride for the next year, at least these holdings in particular. And if we go back to the kind of allocation view, as I've documented many times before in this series, pharma stocks make up a huge portion of the Magic Formula portfolio. I think because their return on invested capital tends to kind of jump up in the short term when they have a successful release of some drug or product. And because of that, they might appear quite cheap as well. So their earnings yields might be pretty good too. So they find themselves on the Magic Formula quite a bit apparently, and they make up a large portion of this little portfolio. But again, that spreadsheet is down in the description if you want to go ahead and take a look at it. Now, if we head back to my portfolio, you might have noticed this thing right here, and that's that about 40% of the total portfolio, which is $5,000, is cash. So $2,000 of the $5,000 is cash, although I think for these performance metrics, it's only counting the invested funds. So you shouldn't really have any cash drag effects on this return metric. At least I'm pretty sure that's how M1 Finance does it, because it really is just based on your actual invested performance. But I've alluded to the fact in the last couple of episodes that I want to do something kind of alongside this Magic Formula portfolio that maybe is similar, but ultimately is a different strategy. Something like maybe the acquirer's multiple. And I'm looking more into that and how I'd want to execute this. The reason I'm waiting to not do it yet, and I want to do it potentially in the future, would be I have tax season coming up in these next couple of weeks. So I want to make sure that everything's in line here because this is a tax advantaged account, and it might make sense to add some more cash to this portfolio before the end of the tax year, which would be in mid-April. So I might be adding some more cash to this, maybe not. So I'm kind of waiting for a second, waiting a month or two before I decide to make any last minute changes to the cash pile here before I set something else off, like putting a few grand towards an acquirer's multiple portfolio or to some value ETF or something alongside this magic formula sort of pie here, which if you want to copy at least this pie, but it's not the exactly updated magic formula screener list. So for that, you'd go to this website here. But if you want to go ahead and copy my actual version of the magic formula portfolio, really from September, you can go down to the description and take a look at the M1 Finance link. And M1 Finance is a free to use brokerage here in the US. So if you're interested in it, if you like this interface at all, it's got some pretty nice features, like a pretty nice borrow feature for some very cheap margin loans, which I've used in the past to actually finance a real estate purchase, or at least part of one. So, but anyways, it's beside the point. If you want to check out M1 Finance, I always have an affiliate link in the description below. And there's also the copy link as well if you want to copy this portfolio, but that's not advice by any means. You should do your own research. This, after all, for me, is just an experiment. I want to see how this thing performs over a pretty significant sample size, a significant period of time. So I'm not making a recommendation for your specific portfolio. Again, do your own research and talk with a licensed professional if you feel like you have to. I am not one of those licensed financial professionals. But overall, my impressions with this magic formula portfolio have been, I guess, a little lackluster. Nothing's really happened, though I didn't really expect much to happen in any short period of time. It's really only been 1 year, but I was adding money to the portfolio as we went along. So it's really only been at this level since September. So call it half a year, I suppose, that we've really been at a stable magic formula portfolio. And while I would have liked to see some significant gains, or at least keeping pace with the market, I have not seen that, and we'll see what actually happens as some holdings continue to outperform to a huge level, and that might pull the portfolio up. Whatever causes this portfolio to work, the whole point of this series is to document it as we go along, see what we can learn, and see if there's something that's actually valuable within this portfolio, if it's even worth using. And that is one of the more frustrating things with investing, especially using more mechanical strategies, is you don't really know if it's going to work, and you're really just trusting the process, and you just got to wait it out. You got to wait for these things to work themselves out, and there's always a chance that they won't work, and then I'll just be down a bunch of money, which is annoying. I'm not putting a huge portion of my portfolio into this. This is a few $1,000s in an otherwise much larger portfolio, so it's not like I'm putting my life savings at risk here. It's just an experiment. See if it works. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then hey, we have some data to go off of. But I think for this series specifically, I'm probably going to lean towards doing updates every couple of months or even every quarter, rather than trying to go for the monthly updates. I've been kind of slacking on that. And that's partly because there's just not a lot going on now, especially now that I'm not churning holdings in this portfolio. So I want to try to make the updates a little bit more interesting for the future. So don't be surprised if there's a month or two where I don't put an update out on this series. If there's something that's crazy that's happening, then of course I'll show you. But otherwise, I'll try to do something probably again, maybe every couple of months, if not every quarter, as sort of my new sort of baseline for giving updates. But in any event, if you have suggestions on what you think I should do either alongside this portfolio or even within it, definitely let me know in the comments below, and I would potentially incorporate that into a future episode. But otherwise, if you like this video, definitely like it, since that would help the channel out a lot, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and check out the affiliate links in the description below. But until next time, take care.